Super League spotlight shining so bright. Interviews and news, come join the hype.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Super League Spotlight. Rona, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Bit tired, but life gets in the way sometimes, right?
Oh, it does. It does.
Um, so this week we've had another week of injuries, kind of dramatic games, new signings, all going on in the SLBW as always. And we've had the website crashing on us when we're trying to do commentary prep.
I know. Although apparently someone was saying it could have been my internet. So, because you could bring it up sort of if it wasn't on Wi-Fi. But see, to be honest, I'm not here
Oh,
to do IT. I'm just here to look up what I need to look up. And those of us who are very time poor will know that when that's your 2 hours to do something and it
that's
doesn't
your
just
two
work,
hours.
it's like a nightmare.
Yeah, I know some people did have issues with I know I clicked on a few on my phone a couple of times and it didn't come up with the latest score on some of the games, but I think it's all sorted back to normal now.
So I know because I was thinking this will be such an easy podcast this week because none of the stats are there. The stats are there now, but there was no live stats during the games. There was no. We were commentating this weekend. There was no live stats during the game, so you were kind of
Right.
like, they're not shooting great, nothing to back up. But that was the vibe. We could obviously get halftime stats, but apart from that, but it's quite interesting just calling what you see.
Mhm.
Like probably like the olden days when they didn't necessarily have a thing of stats and having to be a bit more mindful of jotting down every time the lead got out to where it
The
was a further
olden
point.
days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. Should we go through some of the games from
Let's do it.
from the weekend then? We'll start with Cardiff Met Archers picking up their second win of the season. 66-54 against the Nottingham Wildcats and jumping ahead of them in the league standings in the process.
They did, and I thought they played well. I think, they've had their new signing, Connie Clark, come in and she's done well.
Hmm.
And they also had Kira Stewart go into the team of the week with 13, 18 and an assist. Connie obviously had 22 and 12. Ashley Lewis, good for Wildcats with 10 and 11. But Cardiff, I felt, did a really good job of harassing the Nottingham guards and just getting a bit more going in that sense. And I guess it's a long trip to go to Cardiff, so you've got to try and use that to your advantage, especially when you've got a team like Nottingham who tend to have younger guards on their roster coming down, and it's somewhere different they're going to have to play. Both interestingly shot 32% from the field, um, but Cardiff were 10% better from 3 point land. So, that's quite interesting when you look at that overall their shooting was the same. And also, they got themselves to the line far more often. 28 free throws against Nottingham's 11. And the foul count wasn't that big a disparity. It was
Mhm.
16 fouls to 21. So I think maybe just showing that Cardiff were a bit more attacking minded and getting inside and trying to use that to their advantage.
Yeah, I know we talked about Cardiff last time and how they were consistently scoring more than 50 over the last three or
Hmm.
four games, finding a bit of rhythm offensively and now picking up the second win could be important for them moving forward.
It could be. I fully agree.
I mean, both teams have got tough games at the weekend, but we'll come on to that.
Yeah.
Doesn't get any easier for them, let's put it that way. But yeah, so Cardiff jumping above Nottingham, and Nottingham now in 10th place in the table.
I know.
Let's move on then. Manchester picking up an away win against Essex Rebels. Manchester moving to 8-4 in the league now. 94-77. Lauren Thomas Johnson with 20 points. Her best performance of the season so far.
Yeah, and 4 from 5 from 3 point land.
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched the opening quarter live and then I sort of dipped in and out after that, but I thought it was going to be a Manchester blowout on Essex. 39 points in the opening quarter to 20. And one of them was a Lauren Thomas Johnson. She just nailed a three, you
Hmm.
know, and looks like she was going to shoot them at will. But I mean, if you took actually away the opening quarter, Essex would have won the game by 2. So
Yeah.
I'm sure when you go up by 19, you shouldn't be taking your foot off the gas, but there'll be that sort of mentality. Rianne would have maybe ran her bench slightly different to how she might have if it was a tighter game. I mean, Danny and Davida Danny especially. I mean,
Hmm.
if Manchester were probably higher up the table, she would be challenging, I think, for league MVP. Just
Yeah.
every game she's consistently performing. She's turning them out, whether they're a close win, whether they've lost, whether, they're winning by a lot. They also, Manchester had announced their new signing, Camille Hilot, I'm going to go for. French, and she had 15 minutes, got 5-3 and an assist under her belt. So, that'd be good time to have bled her in. I think obviously it was a tragedy that's going on down in Essex and there was a lot going on
Yeah.
around that game, and it's hard to come out and play. I remember the co-founder of our club, Jim Lave, when he died, we had a minutes of applause before a game, and you felt a bit of responsibility on your shoulders
Mhm.
because you wanted to go and perform well for him. And I think sometimes there can be a lot of things at play, but I think Essex after that opening quarter really accounted well for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, the next one wasn't in the league. We
No,
had our first cup finalist confirmed, and it's Auckland's Wolves who get another chance at silverware, beating Leicester 90 points to 53. But they march on to the final in Nottingham on the 9th of March.
I know. And because my geography is not very good, did not realise how close Nottingham and Birmingham were to each other in the grand scheme of the world.
Yeah,
Like coming,
yeah,
and especially coming from Scotland, so I was like, oh, would that have been closer? But it's not. It's I actually think Nottingham's slightly further. But anyway, that is by the by. Auckland's I would have put my money on to win that.
yeah.
Leicester seem to have lost some players. I see they've promoted some girls up from Division One, which is good.
Yeah,
But
they finished the game with lots of new faces on the
mm,
on course. Yeah, I noticed that.
I feel like there seems to be a bit. I don't know if turmoil is the right word, but they seem to have lost a lot of their overseas players.
Mm,
And it's great that they're bringing in homegrown players, but I feel like the current riders programs maybe quite far from where we have seen the riders program be and how successful we've seen it be, and the players we've seen them produce, and also their how they do down in the Div One and the WABL as well. Yeah, so what I thought was good though is for Oakland's, everyone who hit the floor had a minimum of 5 points. And now 90 is a big number, but for everyone to be scoring at least a
mm.
couple of buckets, I think that's positive going forward. Obviously, Bo, after her recent GB experience, coming on and getting some decent minutes. But I mean, that was also without any Lavinia De Silva or McKee Pleasant, and they've still
Mhm.
gone out and had a command and win. 5 internationals on their team, that's pretty good going.
It's amazing, yeah. Yeah, as you say, I put my money on them winning. But we mentioned last week, I think it was against Durham when the Auckland's played Durham, that they spread the scoring out so well. They're not relying on that one player to kind of have the bulk of the scoring. Um, which I guess moving forward, see the 10-0 in the league, but moving forward, that's going to probably stand them in good stead
Mm.
later on in the season. But yeah, so the other semi-final is on Friday night this week. Newcastle traveling to Sheffield, to see who's going to be in the final with them. I mean, Caledonia aren't going to get there, so you might not need to travel that way again.
No, I know, but yeah, I do love a final and I love the atmosphere, and I think what they created at the trophy final was great. And I could go back there and see if there's one of those Hooper t-shirts kicking about. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I think whoever gets there, I mean, Sheffield will be wanting to get themselves back in because obviously they were knocked out the trophy by the eventual winners, the
Yeah.
Betty Cadona trophy. So I think it'll be interesting. I would see Sheffield winning that. I mean, we'll come to Sheffield in a minute and what's moving and shaking there. But yeah, that should be a tasty matchup on Friday.
And we move on to arguably the two biggest games of the weekend. One that I was at and one that you were at. So we'll start with Saturday night, the local derby up here in the northeast. Newcastle Eagles against the Durham Palatinate. Eagles just about held off the Palatinates, 81-75. From my point of view, I think Durham will be disappointed. I think that game was very much there for them to win. You had the unfortunate injury to Tierra Hodges in the first half, which is obviously massive. She's such a
Mm.
big player. We talk about her nearly every single week and the numbers that she puts up for Newcastle. Um, because in 15 minutes she played, she scored 13 points and had a plus minus of 22
Yeah.
in a game which what 6 point difference at the end. Newcastle just ran away in that second quarter. and put, I
Mhm.
think, 18 points by half time in the lead. Um, but 29 turnovers for Durham really kind of told the story.
Yeah, I kind of also put it was a game of two halves. The first half was 46-28, like you said, but then the second half was 47-35. Um, uh, so if they just managed to hold on and not go down by as much, but I guess that's what sport is, isn't it? Right? It's
Yeah.
you've got to perform as good as you can all the time. Saki, obviously, team of the week, stepped up. 13, 11 assists, 7 steals. Harry at 40 minutes, so 20 points. Must be kicking about her season high this year.
Yeah, 20
Yeah.
20 points, only 2 assists off a triple double.
Yeah. And obviously Hodgie's going out, but also Marina on 0 points. Somebody who usually,
Second game in a row.
yeah, and that'll be sort of maybe in the back of her mind as well. But I thought what would be pleasing for Durham is they had 52 minutes coming off the bench. We've seen them have no minutes come off the bench.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think that's pleasing as well in such a tight game that they had options. Newcastle had 49 minutes off the bench. I just thought it was quite interesting. They were quite similarly matched up in that way. Why did I struggle with it? Was
Certain words.
similarly. Who knows? There was me who wanted to study English at university. Good one, Rona. Um, so yeah, I think good entertaining game. I think it's good. I think it's great for local rivalries when it is close. I think there's nothing worse than a derby game if one team's always light years ahead or whatever.
Mhm.
So although Durham will be gutted, it's good that it was a good close game and a high scoring game. So there's lots for the
Mhm.
fans. Newcastle always great at filling up. We know Lee's trying to get more people in at Durham, that sort of thing. So
But you
yeah,
know,
I think
on that, it was very noticeable in the crowd that there was a decent like a Durham contingent.
oh amazing.
And
Right,
there was
yeah,
a
to
lot of
have
a lot
them.
of the fans you see on a Saturday afternoon in Durham. There's the young families with the cardboard signs with
Yeah,
all the Durham players on and stuff like that. Like it was very noticeable that it looks like Durham have now a
yeah,
core group of fans that kind of support the team and getting to know the players and
yeah.
find out who their favorite player is and stuff like that. Like I
That's
think
cool.
I think that's really important as well. Yeah.
Building they shall come.
Yeah, absolutely. But I thought foul count in this game was interesting. I think at half time it was something like Durham had 13 fouls, Newcastle only had three. So it was a big difference. Harriet had to play most of the second half with 4 fouls, so she had to be careful all the way through that second half. But managed to not foul out, which is quite impressive at times. But
Dots my cap to her. But I also Abby Lowe put up more than normal as
yeah,
well. There was a couple of Newcastle players that stepped in, and that's what you need when players are injured or players do go out.
yeah.
You need to, where's it going to come from? Then you can't just roll over and die.
My Jacob absolutely loves Abby.
Fair enough.
He won't talk to her. He goes dead shy. But
Oh,
but like when she's on court and he's up in the he does go like it's Abby, it's Abby, it's Abby. Like,
oh,
proper
that's
cute.
sweet.
But like
That's cute.
put them face to face, he just goes
Proper boy.
proper boy. Right, let's move on then to the last game of the weekend, the only one on the Sunday, Caledonia Gladiators and the Sheffield Hatters. And it was the Caledonia Gladiators that got the win in another tight game, 67-64, one of Caledonia's classic kind of lower scoring victories.
Yeah.
Talk us through this one.
Second game in a row, like you say, where it's come down to the last shot of the game because Crisper had a a three look. It didn't go in, but Sheffield managed to rebound it, and then she had really good shot clock awareness and launched it up like this, a sort of weird like chest passy, and it hit the front of the rim, the back of the rim, but then just came out.
Oof.
But millimeters from that not going in and forcing it into overtime. So yeah, really entertaining game. Firstly, obviously Laura Zolper and her injury. I've
Yeah.
not heard what happened there, but I hope that everything is fine there. That looked like one of those horribly unfortunate things. It looks like when she's come through the key, she's landed sort of funny as she's just moving through and then taken a bump and gone down. But yeah, because she's obviously been a force to be reckoned with in the league.
Yeah.
She's been outstanding for Sheffield. So it was sad to see her leave the court like that. Caledonia were without Tia Adams and Hannah Robb as well. So that was two big players for them. missing due to injuries. I think maybe still some concussion protocols. I know Hannah didn't play in either of the GB games, although she did travel and was suited up, but that was due to that. Kat obviously shot really well,
Mhm.
had a big three towards the end. But for me, and I know I sort of harped on about it a bit in the commentary, I thought Robin and Kerry really stepped up. And I'd mentioned it at sort of the top of the programme. I was saying, and a bit like we talked about with Newcastle and Tierra Hodges, when you've got players that are injured, not that you ever want that within your team, but as a coach or as a teammate, you're like, okay, what are you going to do to fill that gap? Or who is it that's going to fill those gaps for you? And I think both Sheffield and Caledonia had to do that at the weekend.
Mhm.
And I feel like Robin, she averages about just over 2 points, just over a rebound, and just over 2 assists, but she had 7 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists.
Mhm.
She also played about double the amount of court time, but I just think that's what you need sometimes from players. Kerry had the first three for the team. She then had a big two down the stretch as well when they were needing to get points on the board because it was seesawing backwards and forwards. So no, I was really. It's always nice to see the Scottish girls step up and also the veteranship and leadership of Robin and the sort of newer, younger guard of
Mhm.
Kerry coming through, who I did spy. It was her, the back, or somebody sent it to me to confirm, but it was the back of her head. So she was obviously down at the GB camp as well.
Right.
So what great exposure and experience for her. Thought Delaney had a big second quarter for Caledonia. She was like about 8 points on the bounce and playing that inside role. We see a lot of her maybe shooting the three ball,
Mhm.
but making her presence really known inside. And then obviously when you flip to Sheffield, Zolper was doing a great job, but then when she went out, Georgia, of course, doing what Georgia does, making sure 26-5 across the board. Gandini's slightly quieter on the offensive end, but still got more going. Crisper, I felt she was more noticeable than often she can be. Collier came in, did a good job. Singleton, very quiet, coming off her player of the month, the height, people know to look out for you, but I think she was well matched up at Gladiators. And I guess that's what happens. You can't always be the best player. It
Mhm.
depends how teams match up against you. It depends what's going on for you that day. It depends what other team, like what style they play, where they've put their bigs, where they've got the small, So there's lots of different things going on there. But overall, Caledonia's field goal percentage, 36% to their 29. Sheffield had 7 missed free throws. When it's a 3-point game like that, I think when it's such small margins, there's so many things that you could look at. Caledonia had 23 points coming off the bench. Sheffield, they were then so limited on their bench with who they had to put on, and they just had the 14 points. So, when it's such a tight game, if you're having to rotate around subs and maybe having a couple of players off, you're losing a lot of that offensive edge potentially. But Sheffield are always going to do Sheffield things and they're always going to be capable.
Mhm.
It would be great if Zolper's able to play on Friday. That's best case scenario. If she's not, how are they going to look to shape the team without her? I think they've still got plenty of options and they've got plenty they can do with that. But yeah, they're going to want to get themselves in the hunt for silverware as well.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's hard when you go to Caledonia. They're renowned obviously for that intensity on defense, and it's hard to kind of get that rhythm offensively as the opposing team. I mean, that's why the games are quite often on the lower scoring side because it's hard for opposing teams, I think, at Caledonia to find their rhythm.
Again, as well, it's a long trip for a lot of teams.
Mm.
It's probably overnight stay the night before, so you're slightly out of your routine. Was the bed as comfy? What was the food? All these like little things, but they can play into it, which you just don't have on a home court. I think sometimes teams are only as good as they travel. It's great if you can go undefeated at home, but if you go on the road and can't win games, then that's going to be your downfall.
Hmm. Right, so that's the weekend action in the SLBW. Just before we mention, because we've had the GB international window as well, just before we mention that, I just want to say if you're enjoying this, please subscribe to wherever you're listening to it, whether it's on Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Like and subscribe the video because I mean it's nice to have that support. Isn't that right, Rona?
It is. It is, and we're pretty inoffensive, if I'm honest,
I mean I am. I mean,
but really hilarious.
Right, let's talk GB then because they did qualify for the Eurobasket, which is this summer, but it's been
Yep.
played across 4 different countries. Is that right?
I know, and you've got to register for your interest for tickets, but you don't know where they're going to be playing. I mean, it'll be amazing. Has actually, could we go? Probably not. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a phenomenal tournament, and it's exciting having it in different places. I just wish one of them was here. But anyway,
Yeah, that's true. But they beat Estonia 93-42 and they beat Denmark 75-58 away in Denmark, that was. You mentioned Bo, what is it, Gutham's daughter, Frost from Oakland's, scoring her first international senior points. Um, and loads of the SLBW players kind of stepping up, scoring double figures. Sam Ashby, Shanice Beckford-Norton, Kirsty Brown. It's great to see such a
yeah.
influx of SLBW players in that roster.
Yeah, and I think overall it's quite a young roster as well. So these SLBW players you've got playing, being bolstered by the likes of your Besiktas players, Temi, Holly. You've got Savannah coming in. You know, there's a right good core there. And they're bringing in the youth, which is always good to see and getting them some minutes. But also two really good statement wins, showing them that actually no, we are capable. We're here to compete. It'll be interesting to see what the long list is when the Eurobasket draws round, who's available, who can be there. I saw Hannah Jump was back on the roster,
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
which is great. And she had some really nice big shots. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I think it's competitive. The men's window obviously opening up. Can they go and do the same? Which would be great. Great for the sport. Yeah, positives all round.
Yeah, that men's game, the GB game next week, is in Newcastle.
It is indeed.
I'm not going, but it is in Newcastle. Let's talk SLBW next week then. What is the weekend games? Well, we've got five, most of them on the Saturday again.
Yep.
But Cardiff, Manchester, Essex, Leicester, London against Durham, Nottingham against Sheffield, and then on the Sunday, the big one of the weekend, Caledonia, Auckland's up in Scotland. What stands out for you? What are you looking forward to?
Auckland's Caledonia. Only they beat them in the trophy. Will they back it up in the championship? And obviously Auckland's having to travel. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup. Caledonia, hopefully, you'd hope they'd have Hannah and Taya back, but you just don't know what'll happen there. You don't know. Will McGee Pleasant be back? Will De Silva be back for Auckland? So I guess, yeah, it'll be interesting to see because as much as I like to think I'm important, I don't know any of these things. I literally turn up on the day and I'm like, have I got team lists? And you're just looking at who's warming up to try
Mhm.
and work it out. Like there's no
Counting the
secret comment.
players.
Yeah, there's no secret commentators back chat or anything that's like this is happening there and that's it, unfortunately not. So I can be as in the dark as everybody else. Yeah, and just the slate of games, I think Durham will beat London, Sheffield. I mean, that's a tight turnaround for them, especially if they've got a depleted squad.
Mhm.
Because they'll obviously be going all out for the Newcastle game, but then you can't slip up against Nottingham. So there's going to be a bit of court management there as well. Will Hodges be back? Because that's obviously such a key piece.
Yeah.
Would Washington come back in for Sheffield? There's so many things.
Yeah,
So
I
many
forgot. Obviously, I
variables.
forgot to mention that one. Obviously, we mentioned it earlier, but Newcastle travel to Sheffield on the Friday
Yeah.
night. Originally scheduled for the Sunday, but it's been moved to the Friday, so I can't go. I think they did it on purpose.
They were like, oh, make sure Mark can't come.
Wow.
But yeah, I think overall though, whenever I'm watching the games, I'm enjoying them.
Yeah.
There's something to get out of them. It feels now like it's quite a long season, but still a lot of basketball to be played. I just don't know why the balance was so imbalanced to start. You know how every team like was it Manchester opened with two games in the same weekend, and then Caledonia went about
Mm.
17 years without a home game. Some teams haven't had one for 4 weeks, and I'm just like, what is going on here? But well, obviously there is not going to be much of a settlement because of the whole farce that is the license. But you'd like to hope it's the same
Yeah.
people next year with the league, so it would be have a bit more clarity. Whereas obviously they were trying to jostle it all together, and it's also quite frustrating because I'm never very sure how much the impact feeds into the women's league as well. Like, would that still be ran by the clubs itself, but then the men's is getting taken over? So I'm not very sure.
Mhm.
Please do tell us.
I think we need to do some research and we need to do a podcast episode solely based on the licensing of the men game and the impact that it's going to
Yeah.
have. because they do normally do things together, don't they? The Women's League kind of joins up. Obviously,
Yeah.
we saw that with the rebrand of SLBW at the start of the season.
Uh,
Um, but no, it seems very confusing all of the time. You hear lots of different conflicting bits of information, and
and then you just make some up just for fun. I'm like, oh my God, did you hear this, Mark?
should we think of a new name for the league for next year?
Oh, don't even joke. Imagine.
Just
I
about
said
got
when you go,
SLBW.
I feel like so and so might sign, and people are like, who told you that? I'm like, genuinely, I'm just vibing.
Making stuff up. I'm hoping to travel to London on Saturday for the Durham
Nice.
game.
That'll be
So
cool.
it's 7:30 at night, though. I mean,
Right. Would you or do you drive if you do that?
potentially, yeah. So I haven't quite decided or worked out if it's going to work, but yeah, I'll drive and then get back for the half because where we break for half term this week, so
Lovely.
we're off from next week, so I'll be able to catch up on some sleep, I think.
Oh, but I mean, you've got children, right? So that ain't happening.
So that's not happening yet. That's our three as well. I mean, whose idea was
Oh,
that?
oh.
Right. But no, there we have it then. That's another great weekend to look forward to. Another great weekend just gone. Um, and it just keeps giving. It's the league that keeps on giving this year.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? You thought last year was maybe a bit mad, but it's exciting and it's exciting as well. Like, and you can see the league's improving because of the quality of player that's coming in, and also how well they're doing at Eurobasket with this amount of players.
Mhm.
GB broke in, women are 20th now in the world as well.
Yeah, yeah,
You
that's
know,
right.
I mean, you've got a core bulk of that squad played up, and I know that goes on past results when the team and squad has looked slightly different, but it can only be positive.
Absolutely. Right then, time for us to head off, and we will see you all on the next one.
Toodles.